Welcome to Ask the Expert North Texas here on News Radio 1080 KRLD. I'm David Rancken.
And I'm Kristin Diaz. Oh my goodness, Adulting 101. It's the class we all wish we had when we were in high school, right? To teach us about all things being an adult, including how to handle our finances. Well, now high schools across the country are actually starting to implement this. They are offering personal finance classes to students. And one good source, Khan Academy. The Academy is now teaming up with Capital One to offer free mastery learning classes on subjects like budgeting and saving and consumer credit and even setting financial goals. I think I need to turn back the clock and get back into high school for this. Joining us today is Sal Khan. He is the founder of Khan Academy. Thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks for having me.
Why is this not taught just regularly in schools? Why is it taking so long for us to get the big picture that this is so important?
It's a good question. I think for decades, folks have wondered. They've always thought that you should be teaching financial literacy. It's great to learn algebra. It's great to read the classics. But if you don't know how to balance a checkbook, or the first time you get a paycheck, you're like, where did all that money go? And how do I get a tax? What's a tax deduction? Then you're going to be in trouble in life. Good news is, as you mentioned, a lot of states have now passed legislation to make some kind of financial literacy course a requirement. The hard part is a lot of teachers aren't ready to necessarily teach financial literacy. There aren't well-defined curricula in place for that. And so that's why we partnered with Capital One. They've been philanthropically supporting, and others, so that we can create this course. We're a not-for-profit. Our mission, free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. And Kristin, you don't have to go back to high school, because this course is available and it's free. It's online for anyone. So it can be used by a middle or high school classroom. They can go in order, and y'all mentioned it's mastery based, which is just a fancy way of saying that students get the opportunity, the incentive to practice as much as they need. So it's not just videos and articles explaining things. It's also a lot of practice to making sure that you understand it. But it can also be used by anyone. If you're about to buy a house and you're like, why do I need title insurance? Or what's an escrow? You can get those questions answered. If you're like, what's the difference between an IRA and a 401k? You can get those questions answered as well. It's all available.
Khan Academy has been our app of the day for years on this radio station. It does such incredible things that you're able to teach anyone and everyone. There's a lot of kids that will look back on their high school years, especially in Gen Z, and they'll say, school didn't prepare me for life. And these kinds of classes, I'm guessing, can actually fill in that gap, like you said.
Absolutely. And hopefully this will help. And I think what's also helpful is you get the exposure. You might be 16 or 17 years old, and now you learn about how insurance works or how taxes work. But then when you're 24, 25 years old, and you get that paycheck, or you're trying to figure out whether to buy or lease a car, you're gonna say, well, I wish I had access to that course still. And that's what I think is valuable about this, is that it can be used by high schools to meet the standards that all of these states have. But for the rest of their lives, when these students, or when any of us, face one of these life situations, we're like, now I really need to learn about what an escrow is. You can go back to that same course.
And it's really setting them up for not only for them personally, but this is a huge benefit to the nation. How will this new program contribute to helping bridge that equity gap?
We have a whole generation of, especially young people, but also not so young people, but especially young people who have record high credit card debt, record high student debt. A lot of people are putting off getting married, putting off having kids. They don't think they're ever going to be able to buy a house. And I won't claim that this course is going to solve all of those problems, but it'll hopefully give people a frame and a structure so they can start to think about, well, how can I budget and get my expenses down so I can start to save money? How can I optimize my debt so I pay down that high interest credit card debt first, and then I can go back to the low interest stuff? That type of stuff, hopefully on the margin, will help a lot of folks at least become more optimistic about their finance. And there's good data that students who take a course like this, they are more likely to save more and be in a better shape for retirement and have higher credit scores.
Are students that take these kinds of courses like yours, are they also then more likely to look into other courses of this kind, beyond what you're able to teach, and then kind of expand their knowledge even further?
I hope so. I think in general, if once you start to build confidence and at least start to believe that you might have a better future, it puts you on a much better path. So I see this course as a strong foundation, although Khan Academy has a lot to go even more advanced. If people want to learn even more advanced finance, there's a lot of content there. But I hope this takes a lot of what, honestly, going back to the equity question, happens inside of families. Your parents might tell you a little bit about this or that, but if you don't have access to that, or you're not having those conversations, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah. Being the head of this amazing, as you said, for nonprofit, a nonprofit organization, and just a tool, really, it's got to be really inspiring for you to see how people have maybe turned their life around, gotten through school, have, seen success, because education is power, isn't it?
It is. You look at almost any issue on the planet, and when you really start to peel the onion, it all boils down to an issue of what's going on in people's minds and education. And it was somewhat delusional when I started. Actually, I'm still in the closet when I started it by tutoring my cousins almost 20 years ago, to think that we could have a mission like free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. But now we're reaching tens of millions, hundreds of millions of folks around the world. And for us to be able to, obviously, we've always had math and science and humanities, but now extend it to financial literacy. Yeah, we get letters every day, and people walk up to me, and it's pretty nice. I was just at the gym, and someone walked up to me and said, "Oh, you really got me through algebra." And I'm like, "Yeah, that
I
felt
love
good."
that.
It's awesome. And the other part of this is a little knowledge can go a long way, because how many people do you know that will look at the bills that pile up and just kind of put them at the bottom? They don't want to have to deal with something like this. That little knowledge can also increase confidence in how they take care of their money.
100%. And that knowledge earlier on can keep you from getting to that situation where you start to avoid your bills, because you can be proactive about it early. But absolutely, once you have a framework to engage, you're like, okay, I have some power here. I have some agency here. I can take control of this thing. Then you're going to be in much better shape.
No, absolutely. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know about, the fact that they have these financial courses available?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, we're not for profit. I know people are very cynical these days, that they think, oh, something free can't be good, or it must not be really free. They must be trying to sell something. There must be ads. No, none of that is true here. We are creating this course. If people do a search for Khan Academy Financial Literacy, they could also go to CapitalOne.com/Khan, KHAN, and then that also has a link to the course. But it's free. Hopefully people check it out, and for themselves and for their children. I think it could hopefully add a lot of value.
I know that it's, your last name, but I also love the idea, the fact that it kind of sounds like you're saying, I can, I can, that's just a given.
Very British.
Yeah. I can.
That's good. There's another interpretation of CON, which sounds horrible.
No.
Of course, we didn't go to that one. We just went to the
positive thinker.
CAN, not CON.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the time here on KRLD. That is Sal Khan, founder of the Khan Academy. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.